So I'm a psychic medium, which means I can speak to the deceased. If you have ever seen one or talked with one before, you probably noticed that we have really clear communication with the deceased. So for me, I can actually, at times, often hear what they're saying verbatim to me, regardless of whether or not I knew them in life. That doesn't really matter. So one of the things that they often want to share is they want to guide and support and help us, because they've already lived their lives, and often many lives. So they've learned a lot of things from their afterlife perspective that they wish that they had known when they were alive. So they'll often come through in a session or a reading, or when I used to do videos and live streams for groups and myself, they would come through and share information like, ways that to help the people that were there. And one of the things they're consistently talking about is how to live a life that is going to make you feel like you're not just like waiting to die. A lot of people, one of the things they talk about a lot is that they realized after they passed and were in their life reviews and had fully transitioned out of their bodies, that the first thing was there's nothing to be afraid of in death. Your life is valuable, but your death itself for all of us is not actually something to be terrified of. What we're really truly, terrified of is not living a life that we love and living life full out, because then it means we might fail. We're afraid of being really happy and losing it. We're afraid of, having to open up our hearts that much, because that's what it requires to really live a life of love. But they're consistently talking about, part of living that life that you love means that you have to kind of not be like, oh, death doesn't matter, but not be living the way a lot of people are, which is to in fear of death. Like we're constantly in constant, like it's like pathological fear of death and the unknown. And it makes sense, because in society we are primed to look for things that we can't understand. We're always taught we need to know all the answers. That's what school's all about. It's like literally memorizing everything. And it's all about, if you can't see it, it doesn't exist, right? And really, but to spirit, it's very different. Another thing they talk about is that when you get on the other side, you don't feel negative emotions anymore. You don't feel regrets. You don't feel judgment anymore. That's a human condition. So when you transition out of your human form, you lose those things. Those things go away, which is really, really nice. And so what happens for them is that they realized, wow, like this, without the negativity, the judgments, the angst, the fear, this is who we really are. And they don't really glimpse it and fully or grasp it fully until they get over there. So they're consistently coming through, talking to people about how to work with fear and how to understand their emotions better, because a lot of us don't understand our emotions very well. We often think that like if we're afraid of something, it means we're not supposed to do it. That's actually not always true, right? Sometimes the most delightful, most amazing experiences come from actually facing our fears. So they're consistently talking about that, and how everything that we are is actually this benevolent energy of love. It's not like a romantic love, like what humans idolize. That's very, very different. It's something that we use as a way to experience deep love on earth, is to have children and experience love for them, to experience love for a pet or for another human being, like a romantic relationship or family, sometimes even friendships, or there are people who like really, I feel a lot of love when I'm in nature, because nature is like, doesn't judge us, right? It's like completely unconditional. So that's something that comes up quite a bit, is that the spiritual beings like want us to know that we can choose to live in love now. We don't have to wait until we transition. Almost every single one said that in their life reviews, one of the things they saw repetitively, it wasn't like I made this much money and I got this reward and yada yada, and I'm so glad I got like this and this and this going on. It was actually, they were seeing all of these little tiny teeny moments of kindness and love, and times when other people or pets or animals, etc., were trying to connect with them and give them love, or were feeling love for them, they felt all of it, all of it. So it's not that, like, I'm telling you, like, ditch your job, don't care about money, because in our world we also have to have practicality, and that's something that I always say is, like, don't lose the practicality, but don't live your life for those things. Live your life for the little moments, little interactions, for the moments when you feel really at peace and living in joy, for the moments when you're walking down the street and someone's toddler smiles at you. The little tiny moments of connection are what really came to them when they transitioned in their life review. That's all they were shown. And they got to feel how other people felt. So they were able to witness how, when they did things that weren't as loving, what other people's reactions were to that, how those other people felt. And they said that was, for most of them, you would think that you're only experiencing it one way. For a lot of us who are very empathic and very sensitive, we know that that's not always how emotions and energy work. It's often, and both, because we can feel other people's energies or body sensations, emotions in our own bodies, and often don't realize that we are. But when we get into spirit, one of the things I see in the life review is consistently how their own actions affected other people, places, things, had ripple effects. Like they're like, it's hard to explain because you exist out of time and space, but you also know it all, you see it all, you witness it all, and all of a sudden from so much clarity. And you're not sitting there like, oh, I'm so glad I there wasn't a single one of them that was like, I'm so glad I slaved away at my work at that job I hated. They all said, oh my gosh, living a life of joy and filled with love and being love and giving love and receiving love, in the oneness that we all are, is really why we were here. And that's been universal across the board. That also comes through a lot from people who have, so not just spirits, but people who have near-death experiences. 9 times out of 10 have similar life review or wisdom come back with them. Like they have an experience of going into a light, and then they often have those same types of epiphanies when they're there, like, oh my gosh, love is all there is, and I don't need to be living in fear anymore. That's something that comes through a lot from spirit or from people who have crossed over for me, is that our true selves is really this loving, universal one self, and that we really are one with everything and everyone. And this is not just kind of like fluffy esoteric philosophy and wisdom. It actually has a lot to do with physics and quantum physics. So it's not something that's not scientifically proven. It's actually very sciencey, that energy is everything. And so it makes sense that with the way that we are one with everything and everyone, literally, you can't see air right now. I can't see the air in the room, but it's there, right? There's energy there. Even if I can't see it, I can see that there's space, right? Doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It just means space is there, right? So that energy is always there around us and running through us at all times. And that's one of the things that they realized, is that we're one with everything and everyone. And had they known that when they were alive, they would have potentially made very different choices. And that's why they want to come back to guide us, is to help the Human Consciousness Collective, which is going through massive changes and upgrades right now. They want to help us actually live in a way that fuels a larger sense of collectivity, but not in a negative, mind warp kind of way, in a collective love and union, and understanding that who we are inside is part of a larger, beautiful fabric, and that we are just as important, and everyone else is just as important as us. Right? That everyone is on this equal playing field, and everyone is equally important. The whole tapestry would fall apart if one thread got broken or one thread wasn't there. So every single being, every single thing is part of this equally, and they're all woven together in this beautiful pattern. And if we could just feel that and practice feeling that oneness and open our hearts and our minds to the world around us, they were just 1% more, just 1% more every day, just 1% more. They were start small, and then just start, because it takes time for your brain and the neurons to be able to hold those types of changes over time, because you have to actually, you can retrain your brain to look for oneness, for unity, for love, to think differently. You're not fixed, like you're not stuck where you are. Like there's no value in being stuck. If you've really noticed, like, and you ask yourself, like, what's the value of being stuck or being scared and being small? It's not always that you're going to live a life that is filled with love or a feeling of joy or a feeling of purpose, right? But when we can expand into a larger awareness of how we are just as an essential part of the larger fabric as anyone or everything else, it can actually give you a little bit more, fuel to move into a larger sense of purpose, to go out there and finally, meet that person or have kids or adopt kids or, go join that nonprofit, stop doing the things you don't like and start doing the things that you really do like, because you realize that affects the whole fabric. And that was another thing. And this is going to rub some people the wrong way, especially in the Western world. We are really hardwired and we have consistent programming that has been passed down like for centuries, that has to do with a struggle to success story, that everything has to be hard. Like the whole American dream theme is based off of struggle to success and working your way up, and everything has to be so hard. We all have to struggle. I'm not downplaying or invalidating the work of our ancestors, our grandparents, people who really cared and did work hard. It's not about like invalidating that. It's more so that they're just saying, it's not about not doing any work. It's that when you realize you actually come here for joy, which is quite a revolutionary thought for a lot of us, you can actually start to move yourself into vocational places or career changes that feel like joy. And as you move into joyful places, you free up the old job or spot or whatever for someone who would actually really enjoy that as well. So you can have a very positive ripple effect by living a life you love. So for example, again, like in relationships, if you're in a relationship where you do not fill it up every day and you're not enjoying it, but you're afraid to be on your alone, you're actually not living according to the true purpose or function of your beingness and your being here, which is to live in joy. And also that other person is not feeling the completeness and the wholeness of their own joy that they could be feeling, because they can consistently sense a lack of integrity. And so my guides and loved ones on the other side are consistently coming in, encouraging people in readings. And it does not matter where these people are from, what their belief systems were, etc. These beings come in consistently and will say, like, have these really similar tones about what did they learn when they transitioned and what do they want to help the person with. And often it has to do with them not doing things that they dislike anymore or that aren't true to them, like deep down, like we really know, like this doesn't feel good, this doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z, but God, do I just feel like I'm dying a slow death instead of really living my life? They are constantly encouraging us to live lives that are more authentic to what would light us up and make us joyful. And that can be very different from person to person. And that's actually really important because the world is so diverse. It's a beautiful thing. So if everyone was all the same, it would be like really boring, and we would have like a lot more resource depletion in specific areas. Like it would be like everyone likes apples and like no one likes oranges and all the apples are gone. You know what I mean? It would be really strange. So like we need to celebrate our diversity. That's the other thing, is they keep talking about, recognizing our oneness and collectivity is really important from a peaceful, positive state, but also to honor your sovereignty within it and your ability to live your own life and think and act for yourself from love. So not in a codependent way, not in a fearful way, like they really are like, if everyone was following what felt loving and true for them, we would have a world that would not be filled with violence or, we wouldn't have people needing to steal, needing to cheat, needing to lie, because everyone would be so happy they wouldn't need to do those things. Like think about it, when someone's really happy, they don't hurt anyone else. Like people who like go and kill other people aren't actually happy. They're usually brainwashed and or dissociative or sociopathic. aren't you like literally clinically are not feeling joyful emotions when you're in those states, right? So when someone's really in joy, they feel one with everything. And that's if you've ever had like really happy, joyful feelings, you're really peaceful. You're not going to hurt anyone or take anything. So that's often why they'll come through and talk about that so much, is because we judge happiness and we think, oh, well, other people are allowed to be happy, but not me. Or I'm going to look too selfish if I'm happy. Actually, you being happy, when it comes from a loving, kind, peaceful, in full and authentic and in state full of integrity, you're actually doing the world a favor by being in that, right? And you can influence and impact others just literally by demonstrating what it looks like to live an authentic, peaceful, joyful life. That is, your creativity will turn on. You'll have a lot of really great things happen for you. You become a magnet for like more people that are also in that state and wanting to move into that state. And you don't even have to like convince them to go there. They will just naturally rise around you. So it's actually incredibly important that you're in that. It opens your creative channels. It helps you think of new ideas, new solutions. It's where a lot of very altruistic and like really, really benevolent people actually come from. And people who attract, even amazing amounts of wealth, but do really great things with it, to help other people. And there are a lot of people, there are more people like that out there than there are just like greedy people who have tons of money and like don't give a shit about anyone. Trust me, like we just don't always hear the stories about the generous ones, but there are lots of stories of them. You have to look for them, right? So those are the main things I wanted to share. The other thing they wanted to say is to remind us that we often feel like when someone transitions that they're separate from us and they're gone. And it is very valid. Like I've gone through grief myself. It's very valid to miss the physical experience with that person, like the hugs, getting to call them, etc. But they're around you and around all of us all the time. They never leave our sides, like not in a haunting, scary way. There's no negative energy on that side. Usually when we experience negative energy, that's usually a misperception of what's going on. It's usually our fears like projecting themselves outward and our minds misunderstanding what's happening. We'll get into that later. But so one of the things they kept saying is if you knew that you had that spiritual support system of people who unconditionally love and care for you, like Spirit does, or like your loved ones who've crossed over do, how would you live life differently if you knew that that was around you and available to you all the time, that you had this like little entourage around like cheering you on, and that everyone else has the same thing for themselves, right? It might make you live life or a little bit more differently. It might help you feel like I'm really not that alone. There really is way more support than I even can see or hear or feel sometimes. And that you can call upon that at any time in any place and allow it in to support you is really, really wonderful and beautiful. And of course, like, we all have different belief systems. This is personally what I have encountered and what I have heard and been told. And so for me, this is where I sit in a really solid place of truth. If you do not feel the same way, that's okay. I do not need people to agree with me. That is not something that I require to be friends with people, or, I'm okay actually with my friends having a lot of different viewpoints. I actually believe that's part of the fabric of life. Again, we're all important. All of that is important. But I'm just sharing what I have heard and how I interpreted these messages. And so I hope that this is helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm at adventurenox.com. My name's Allie. And I'm always here to share the wisdom that comes through as much as I can, just living that single mom life. So any questions, again, please reach out to me, and thank you for watching.